I put together a short summary, if I may, about the history of Antiochus and how the history of Hanukkah came about. Would it be all right if I just talked about it for a few minutes?
Yep, go for it.
Antiochus IV came to power in the Jewish year 3586 in Gregorian calendar in 174 BC. And he came to power when his brother, who was king of Syria, died. He reigned over Syria, and he was a dictator, he was a tyrant, he was contemptuous of religions and the feelings of others, and he really was what we would call a narcissistic sociopath right now. He was called Ephenimes, meaning God's beloved, by his friends and his cronies. Plobitis, who was a historian at the time, gave him the more common, appropriate name that the people called him, of Ephenimes, meaning madman. He was a harsh, cruel, and brutal barbaric king, and he did anything he wanted to get his own way. At one point in time, Rome had talked to him, and he wanted to unify his kingdom in deference to Rome and a common traditional Greek society, and this was a problem because the Jewish people had their own individual ways of doing things and were very independent people. And the only way he could do this is he tried to destroy and root out the individual tenets of the Jewish belief. He started out by suppressing all the Jewish religious laws, and he removed the racist Jewish high priest, who was called Joachim, and replaced him with his brother, who was a Hellenistic Jew. And his brother used his position as high priest to spread Greek customs and ideas among the priests
Whose brothers? Was that
Antiochus? Oh, I'm sorry, Joachim's brother.
So the high priest at the time, his brother.
He removed the really righteous king and replaced him with a corrupted, pervert high priest who he could use to dilute the Jewish belief.
So the high priest's brother was actually willing to play ball with him?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And as a result of what was happening, a revolt occurred among the Jews because of these changes, and Antiochus became enraged and crazy, and he sent out his soldiers, and thousands of Jews were killed. Jewish worship and practices were forbidden by the penalty of death, and he even went so far as to take the sacred Jewish scrolls out of the Jewish temple, and they were burned in public. He sent his soldiers from town to town to force the Jewish people to worship pagan Greek gods and altars, and to force Jewish priests and leaders of the Jewish faith to eat pork. He wanted to defile the people, and so that the Jewish religion would never come back. His people went to the town of Moran, and there was a retired priest by the name of Mad-A-U, and he refused to do what he wanted. Antiochus' forces came to the town of Moran, where Netanyahu, the old Jewish priest, lived. The Jews built an altar in the town's marketplace and demanded that Netanyahu offer sacrifices to the Greek gods, and again the old priest refused. Then a Hellenistic Jew approached the altar to do a sacrifice, and this enraged the old priest, who grabbed his sword and killed the Hellenistic Jew. Netanyahu's sons and friends fell upon the Syrian soldiers and killed many of them, and chased the other soldiers out of the town. The old priest then destroyed the altar and rededicated the place where this had occurred. Netanyahu fled to the hills of Judea, and all loyal and courageous Jews from around the country came and joined him. They formed an army and attacked Antiochus' forces, and they destroyed pagan altars built by Antiochus, and also destroyed what was built in the high places. Netanyahu died, and Judea the Strong, called Maccabees, was the new leader. Antony sent 2 armies over a period of time to defeat the Maccabees, and these were destroyed by the Maccabees. Antony finally sent a 40,000 strong army to wipe out the Maccabees, and they were defeated by the Maccabees. After the war was over, the Maccabees went to Jerusalem to liberate the temple, and they cleansed it. They rededicated the temple, and they had to build a new Moriah menorah, because the old one that had been made out of gold was taken to the king, and they made an imitation, and then they found out they only had 1 day's oil that had been purified by the old high priest, and they lit it. And in the process, they were also trying to purify other things, and the oil lasted for 8 days until they had enough oil to add to it. It burned for 8 days, and at that point in time, the miracle proved that God had again taken his people under his protection, and in memory of this, our Jewish traditions appointed these 8 days for an annual thanksgiving and for lighting and in memory of the miracles that was done. It was never made a feast, but in happenstance or in traditions, it is a feast of the people that commemorated this victory and the love of God over his people.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not necessarily a biblical feast, and I know people tend to call them Jewish feasts, but in the Bible they're called the Lord's Feast.
Right.
So we have this feast, festival, Hanukkah, Festival of Lights, that Jesus actually took part of. I wonder why, what he did, how much he took part in it, how important it was to him.
We know that he celebrated Hanukkah, but Hanukkah itself is only mentioned one time in the New Testament. And if you go to any of the Jewish communities, Hanukkah is really more important than many of the other ones because of the commemoration of what it meant, and it meant the love of God upon the people and the renewing of that covenant between God and his people.
Yeah. You know, I think it's something that we need to understand a lot these days, because it was a few people that was actually able to stand and willing to stand for what was right and not compromise. There aren't too many outlets where you can hear in-depth spiritual issues alongside conservative politics, where we can make a difference to those around us and our country. It's brought to you at a cost that's worthwhile, yet I'd like to do more. On 11thhourpolitics.com, you can buy books and videos that will advance this cause. There's delicious chanterelle tea containing vitamin D, proven to dispel depression. We have an art gallery and options to produce your own commercial or have us do it for you, along with other projects. It's only through a co-op that things get accomplished. I hope you will join me in this mission.